afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Women in Tech event at CGI. We are very, very pleased to be able to talk to you about one of our favorite topics today, why a career in SAP makes sense and why a career in SAP at CGI is even more beneficial and exciting. My name is Madhuri Chawla. I work at CGI. I lead the SAP strategy, and joining me today is Leanne Colligan as well, my colleague at CGI, who's also in the SAP practice, leading some of our delivery work for SAP clients. So first, before we go into our career highlights and why we chose SAP and how we helped shape our careers and several other people's careers in the SAP ecosystem, maybe spend a minute talking about what is SAP. Hopefully all of you are very familiar. SAP was founded in 1972. It's a German-based company with their headquarters being in Waldorf, Germany. I've had the pleasure of visiting Waldorf many times over my career in SAP. It was actually founded by 5 people, and most of them were actually ex-IBMers, and it's the world's largest enterprise resource planning ERP software in the world today. It has beaten all the other ERPs that existed previously. And really, it has evolved so drastically over the years. So part of our talk, we'll talk to you about how it's evolved. And because it's evolved, Leanne and I were able to have a very meaningful and long-standing career in the SAP business. SAP touches just about every company you can think about. It's cross-industry software, solving problems for customers and their clients. So it's really running core enterprise resource planning functions like finance, HR, supply chain, across various industries, retail, manufacturing, utilities, life sciences, pharmaceutical, you name it. Most of the Fortune 500 companies and the Fortune 100 companies, they're all running SAP, as well as a lot of the mid-market clients. So with that, perhaps we'll talk a little bit about, what are some of the personal career highlights and, how we got here. So as I said, SAP is great in terms of offering us a platform for continuous learning. It has evolved drastically over the past 30 plus years. And within CGI, of course, SAP practice is over 30 years old. So we've been servicing some very, very large enterprise customers with various sorts of SAP solutions that CGI offers. And same is the case for a lot of the other consulting firms and other types of partners that offer various types of services for SAP. So SAP, not only has evolved, it has a lot of different products. SAP is the founding company, but of course it has grown drastically through acquisition. So for example, a few years back, it didn't have a full-blown HR. It acquired a company called SuccessFactors, then it acquired another company for travel and expense called Concur. So it, Ariba for procurement and so on. So it's been continuously expanding over the years, the business functionality, also investing heavily in the data and AI space. And we've had the opportunity to lead a lot of the transformation journeys for the end customers, for these Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, irrespective of which industry or sector the companies happen to reside in. So my personal career started in the SAP space over 25 years ago. I spent my initial career at SAP started, I'm a computer science major initially, and then I did my master's in management information systems. So it gave me a true blend of business and technology. That's what attracted me to SAP in the mid-90s. That's when I kind of started the career journey. My initial journey was very interesting. I was actually deploying SAP to the largest retailer here in Canada, Sobeys. With their IT transformation journey. I was put in there. Prior to that, I had done a lot of consulting engagements in SAP, but smaller in duration. This one was 3+ years. So I started my career at IBM as a professional hire into the consulting division. And later on, Leanne will talk to you about the various roles. It was very, very exciting to be in the consulting business, very cool, traveling all around North America. I did many, many different projects across many global companies, spent several years of consulting, initially started my consulting career in the technology side as a developer. But then, of course, given my background, and I thought it was far more fun to understand, the business problems that users were facing. So I kind of moved more onto the business side and, bridged over to the functional side. So that's kind of how I started. And then, of course, the cloud era began, and I was more interested to develop offerings. So I actually moved into product management for a few years and developed global offerings that were deployed. And these global offerings were for the ERP space, both SAP and Oracle, running them for offering managed services on the cloud platforms. And then interest peaked further into strategic partnerships, and I moved into that role for a few years, leading the strategic partnerships with SAP and with the partner ecosystems, including the hyperscalers and some of the other partners that offer niche solutions in the SAP area. So that's kind of where my journey's been, and I'll pass it over to Leanne. Leanne, would you share some insights on how you got into SAP and why you stayed with it?
Sure. My journey was very different than Madhuri's. And for maybe some of you, I'm sharing it because who knows how yours is going to start. So I didn't have a comp sci degree. I did sociology and psychology in university. And I'm saying that I started my career literally on the ground floor, but it was actually the top floor. So after university, I went to Japan for 3 years and taught English. There weren't a lot of jobs. The economy was bad. When I came back to Toronto, again, still not a lot of jobs, but starting anyway, I got a temp job. My temp job happened to be at Bell Sigma. It's okay to say that. I was on the executive floor. So I met the CEO and the CFO and I asked them for a job, basically begged them for a job. And I started in communications with Bell Sigma, doing event and meeting planning. And there's a hiring freeze. I ended up moving out, leaving Bell Sigma and going to do junior gold mining. I did investor relations for a couple of years, and then Bre-X broke, if anyone remembers that, and junior gold mining companies didn't fare so well. Anyway, I went back to Bell Sigma, and I was the EA for the VP of SAP. And I could joke that that's where my real work began. So I think that majority of our careers kind of aligned, that she was already an SAP consultant while I was trying to be one, begging for an opportunity to work on an SAP project. I did finally I got one. It was the implementation of SAP in the largest telecommunication company in Canada. That project lasted 2 years at least. And I started as a PCO. So from there, I was a PCO. From when that project ended, I was offered a resource manager role. I did that for the SAP team. From there, continued to badger to try to get into SAP and write my certification exam. And the same VP that I had worked for before. Anyway, I wore him down enough, proved enough that I could do it. And from the resource manager, I ended up writing my PS certification, going into support for a couple of years, and then moving into delivery. And from delivery as a functional consultant, I moved on several projects, and I would take any role there was. So if there wasn't a PS role, I took a testing role for a module that I didn't know. I ended up being co-lead as a integration test planner. Finally, at the end of my consulting career, I guess I led PS, the implementation of PS into a large, I guess there would be medical public sector project. I was offered service delivery manager, and then that's when I moved into management. So I was a service delivery manager for a few years, and then promoted to service delivery director. So now I am looking after five customers' managed service accounts. I have, most of my team is offshore, probably about 50 FTEs total, 11 direct reports. I try to drive transformation optimization and still mutter in transaction codes every once in a while. It's been very rewarding. And as we were saying, the SAP's changed a lot. So Madhuri, back to you. How has SAP evolved over the last 25 years? Can you still hear me? I can't hear you anymore.
I can hear you. So
Oh.
SAP kind of started with R2, the release 2, and then it went to release 3. So a lot of people may have heard the acronym R3. Surprisingly, some customers are still running some very old legacy versions. And then it kind of moved into acronym in the industry called ECC, which was this next iteration and a major change in the software when they put out ECC. But a few years back, SAP put out their first in-memory solution called HANA, which was traditionally a database, but then they put out the product S/4HANA. So S/4HANA is their latest version, and now it's going in the industry, runs both in private and public cloud variations. So it's available more as a SaaS offering now, the public cloud edition for S/4HANA. But also they have some of the older perpetual license customers that don't want to move to the public cloud edition, obviously for many reasons. So they still offer the private cloud edition of S/4HANA. So what's happening, as SAP's evolved over the years, the industry has had to keep up because it is the largest ERP in the world. But recently, actually, there was an article published that SAP even bypassed all the major auto manufacturers in terms of being the largest company, from Germany. As you know, Mercedes, BMW, and others auto manufacturers were very large German companies, giants in the industry. SAP's even bypassed them in terms of total value of the company. And it is by far the largest ERP. So as it has evolved, it has, of course, also included the latest industry trends by including, the latest AI. So because SAP has the advantage of working cross-industry with the largest customers and the medium-sized customers, as well as they have some solutions for smaller customers called Business One and so on. So they have the advantage that they can work directly with the business users to continuously evolve their software. Therefore, they've been able to incorporate some of these AI use cases that are industry specific into their actual product. So it's not only influencing the technical strategy for a company, but with SAP deployment, you're really influencing the entire business strategy for the end customers. Like for the end customers, what's important could be cost optimization. It could be that they want to attract more customers, they want to increase their revenue, or there could be other business-led decisions why the company chooses to deploy SAP, because it gives them this competitive advantage in the industry. And we obviously are benefiting, from working in the SAPs in many different types of careers. It's not limited just to consulting careers. So that's a good segue for me to ask you, Leanne, your points of view on what are some of the potential careers, the women and men that are attending today can think about outside of simply the consulting careers. If you can talk about both aspects, please.
Sure. The ecosystem's massive and diverse, and there's a lot of roles that are offered for a wide range of interests and strengths. I started off, I say that an SAP functional consultant, they're the one who bridges between the business process and SAP solutions. The examples are HR, finance, supply chain. There's also a technical consultant or a developer in SAP. The languages worked with are ABAP, Fiori, UI5, integrations and enhancements. There's solution architects, and they design the end-to-end SAP landscape for enterprises. There's basis administrators and security consultants, and they handle the performance, infrastructure, and compliance of SAP. A business analyst or a BI specialist, they focus on analytics, data modeling, and reporting. SAP, Madhuri mentioned, SAP's analytics in the cloud has taken, the company to new heights. There's BW on S4HANA. And then you have project management. They drive delivery, they budget, scope, and work on implementations. And then you have SAP support, or AMS, like a managed service consultant, and they provide post go live support, improvements, and system monitoring. Outside of those consulting type roles, or bigger role, both tech savvy and business minded people, and that would lead you into account executive roles, product management roles, partnership roles, sales and business development. And we offer all of these roles at CGI if anyone is interested. And Madhuri, now we talked about roles, why do global system integrators invest in SAP?
Sure, thanks, Leanne. So, the global systems integrator, or the GSIs as they're commonly referred to, we're talking about the major big six and a lot of niche firms. So the big six meaning like, the IBM, Accentures, Deloitte's, CGI, KPMG, and so on. The reason these companies, focus a lot, first of all, they all have large SAP practices, right? Because as you can hear, SAP terminology, it's a village on its own. It has a whole bunch of acronyms, unfortunately, and the acronym in the SAP space may mean something else in a different, context. So these companies, make huge amounts of revenue, primarily for 2-3 different reasons. One is obviously most of these companies are global. They're working with a lot of the large enterprise industry customers that are running SAP. And as you just heard us earlier talk about, SAP continuously evolves. So these companies have to move to stay competitive to the newer versions of SAP so that they can take advantage of the new functionality that SAP pours, a huge amount of R&D budget into to continuously evolve the product. So they want to take advantage of that. So when a company decides to move from an older version of SAP to a newer version, or a company that was not running SAP and now wants to deploy SAP, in both cases, they would need a global systems integrator to help them with this transformation journey that can, map their existing business processes to the to-be processes and how the changes will impact the client. But at the end of the day, these GSIs are investing because these SAP practices do this piece of work to help the end customer with their transformation journey. Another reason is obviously the strategic value. So SAP is not just a software. We talked about the business value it offers to the deploying company as well as to the end customer. So for example, improving the entire supply chain if it's a manufacturing company, or, giving them a better return of investment instead of in terms of increasing its customer sales. Or if their, business mandate was to deploy just SAP Finance, as an example, they can do that too, to optimize their finance processes and make them more agile and faster. So it gives the companies, an innovative edge, and hence the GSIs tend to make a lot of revenue by helping these companies deploy SAP and to deploy the newer modules or newer solutions coming out through this. The GSIs can stay competitive, they can stay relevant, they can work with a lot of the global and, of course, national level companies. I'm not implying that SAP only works at the global levels, but there's a recurring demand, as you're seeing, because SAP continuously evolves, the customers have to evolve, and therefore the GSIs are in the business of providing business strategy, implementation, and consulting services to this customers. And then Leanne talked about another angle, which was, once the customers are live with this SAP footprint, the customers will continuously need support. That's what's classified as AMS support, application management support. So companies like CGI will continue to, manage these SAPs to provide them help desk support of various levels. So the companies don't need to invest in their own resources, whereas a much better model is provided to them with skilled expertise to manage their steady state, production environments. And that frees the company's resources, obviously, to focus more on the business side of the house, on where the company actually wants to evolve. So those are some of the key reasons. And then, the question kind of comes down to, why does CGI invest? Obviously, we're a GSI for some of the same reasons we just mentioned. CGI is heavily invested in the SAP space. We've been supporting clients in many different ways. So we have, 4 types or categories of services that we offer in the SAP space. The first pillar is really around our consulting and strategy, so we can provide advisory services to customers to help them making a decision if SAP is the right fit, and if they're in the older version of SAP, is the newer version a right fit, to kind of do that business strategy work in terms of advisory services. We also have other sorts of services that we can offer. Let's say, we have to partner with another GSI that the customer selected. Then CGI can also help, providing some staff augmentation for some of the change management roles, project management roles, because we have some of the top leading best practices in the world in terms of providing, change management, project management services for the SAP and the non-SAP footprints, etc. Then we have another pillar of services, which is primarily around migration services. We can offer customers migration to the newer versions into, either any of the cloud hyperscalers, whether it's AWS, Microsoft, or GCP, or a hybrid solution, some on-premise, some on cloud. So we can offer systems integration services as well. SAP's latest trend in the market is around business technology platform. We have some defined use cases that CGI has developed working with our customers in the BTP space that we bring to the table. And we have just adopted, SAP's just announced about a month ago, their business data cloud. And we are amongst the first set of partners that SAP is going to market with this business data cloud solutions. So as you can see, there's a whole different realm of services that CGI brings to the table in the SAP space. And then, of course, lastly, Leanne also talked about strategic partnerships. So we, work extensively, not only with SAP, but all the hyperscalers I just mentioned. Plus, of course, we work with a lot of the niche providers that have some very niche solutions in the SAP space to bring, a holistic integrated solution to the end customer. With that, I think we will pause here and open it up into questions from the audience. So, Leanne, thank you.
Sure. I see the first question that maybe we could vote, saying, when did your first job, did you apply with a resume and a cover letter, or was it application or network heavy? For me, it was network heavy.
Yeah, for me, it was a slightly different story. So I was a professional hire into IBM. I spent 23 plus years in IBM. It was because I was actually an independent consultant at the Sobeys that I mentioned, and IBM wanted me. So I was hired on a plane, actually. That's my story of how I got into IBM. Yeah. Okay. And then we have another question. With AI dominating the tech industry, what is SAP doing in the AI space to become a world leader? Leanne, you want to take that, or you want me to take it?
You can probably do. I mean, I know they have heavy investment in their cloud. Their cloud analytics would be the area that I'm more familiar with.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. SAP is staying competitive in the AI space. A couple of viewpoints on this, as Leanne mentioned. In the AI space, obviously, they have their product called Joule. So Joule is kind of their interface to the end customer that SAP invested heavily in. Currently, what SAP is doing is investing in a lot of the AI use cases, which are industry specific. So for example, in the manufacturing space, to optimize your end-to-end supply chain, or if you're thinking of manufacturing in the warehouse management, they've actually got some very cool AI use cases that they have developed with their end customers. And obviously, as time evolves, SAP investments in AI is very, very high. They're including some of these use cases that they're working with end customers into their standard product so other clients can take advantage.
Next question is about how we're leveraging given the state of the economy, how we're leveraging SAP's expertise to empower Canadian clients to manage the landscape. And I would say that we fit perfectly into, I mean, our business model is local. I know that recently we're trying to leverage other CGI clients that we may service in other areas to try to get into their SAP space if we're not already there. Madhuri, do you know any other?
Yeah, no, you said it, Leanne. And then remember, CGI is a Canadian company. From all the GSIs we named earlier, CGI is the only one that's a Canadian company, even though we operate in 40 plus countries globally. We're headquartered in Montreal, Canada. So that, with the current political situation and tariff situation going on, obviously, CGI should be the partner of choice to help customers because we are Canadian, right? I think there's one more question.
Would you recommend?
Yeah. And that's how there was another part to this question. I recently attended a Chamber of Commerce event where the topic was okay. I think that was the one.
Yeah, that was the one.
That's what we just answered.
I just chopped off the Chamber of Commerce part.
Okay. What certification would you recommend if I have no prior SAP experience? That's a difficult one because it depends on your background, whether you are a technologist at heart or if you are a business major. As Leanne had mentioned when we talked about the various types of roles, there's independent certifications for each of the business. So for example, if you're in the finance background, you can do an SAP finance. Now, finance is kind of the core because most companies starts with the finance implementation. On the other hand, if your background is sales and distribution, or if it's HR, you can pursue any of those functional certifications at SAP. That's part A as an answer to your question. If you're a technologist at heart, then obviously you can go down the path of a technical certification in SAP and become a developer, if you will, also working in the data and AI space. So SAP has evolved, their certifications have evolved over the years. So you can pick one of those, right? So depending on what your interest is, there is a certification out there that will be very close to what you're doing or aspire to do. How to stay competitive in the SAP space. Leanne, do you want to take that one? I think we're almost running out of time. That may be our last question. Leanne, you want to take that?
Yeah, how are we staying competitive?
Competitive.
Because I read 3 now.
One. Yeah.
How do we stay competitive in the SAP space? I think by training our members, by making sure that we have, that our consultants have the most up-to-date training. And it is all about our members. We're the partners at CGI, but we stay competitive by keeping our members informed and trained and up to date on the latest technologies, and make sure that we know and the in-depth knowledge that we have about our customers. I mean, it's really important to understand what your customer needs and give them what they need.
Yeah.
And make sure you have the resources to deliver it.
Yeah. No, sounds good. And the last question, how many customers does SAP have, does CGI have that we've moved from ECC to S/4HANA? That deadline is no longer 2025, by the way. SAP has shifted it to the right. But CGI has helped many, many customers around the globe, not just in Canada, moving, to the newer versions of S/4HANA. And that's part of our core bread and butter. So we are here to help our clients with their transformation to S/4HANA, irrespective of whether you're going RISE or non-RISE. We're able to help the clients. I think we're out of time. So I personally wanted to say a sincere thank you to all of you. We do have a calendar available. Leanne and I have set it up. If you would like some more discussions, happy to take those on. And I'll pass it to you, Leanne.
Yes, you wrapped it up well.
Okay, thank you.
Good luck, everyone.
Good luck. Yes. Bye.